reasons, well, I've actually interviewed you before, haven't I? But one of the reasons I personally have been really interested in your work is because you've had so much practical experience of the real world. And I guess that's pretty rare, particularly in thinkers and intellectuals who haven't actually been on the front line, as it were. And I think this is like one reason to talk to you tonight is it sort of feels to me, at least, that that real world has suddenly exploded in areas where it hasn't been, let's put it like that, for a long time, 2 or 3 generations maybe. And I have to confess that for myself personally, although I like to feel like I understand the world, I've had moods of feeling a little bit at a loss about exactly what's going on. And so what I'm interested in is in the light of your experience, how do you think we should understand the coronavirus crisis, both in your country but also globally? I mean, what are you thinking about it at the moment?
It's the first fatal blow against the structures of industrial neoliberal society. These structures have been hollowed out and weakened. Look at your National Health Service, by the forces of neoliberalism, by these global corporate forces, these speculators and financiers who have seized control not only of national economies. You don't control your own economy any more than we do. We just saw this with the quote unquote stimulus package that was passed today, that provides gigantic bailouts to the airline industries. And we know from 2008 what they're going to do with the money. That's why the stock market has rallied. They buy back their stock, they pay themselves huge bonuses, and they lay off their workers. So we've hollowed the country out. The foundations of capitalist democratic systems, both within the UK and the United States, are weak and tottering. And the coronavirus, the pandemic that now faces us, is the first assault against a structure that's so enfeebled that it can't handle it. This is particularly true in the United States, where we're really in for it here. Just anecdotally, I know numerous people who have what looks like severe corona symptoms, including my friend Joe Sacco, and yet they can't get tested. And one of my friends is a doctor, and she couldn't get tested. And so the number of cases in the United States, because although we had adequate warning, of course, but we didn't have the test kits, we don't have the protective gear. New York City is turning into a disaster zone with makeshift morgues, tents already being set up outside of hospitals. We have projected unemployment now at 30%, economists are saying. I think it was 3.3 million filed for unemployment last week. And you have to remember that because of, unlike Britain, we don't have a National Health Service. It's a for-profit healthcare system. So we have huge segments of the population that are outside of the healthcare system completely. Not just undocumented workers and the 80 million people who are either underinsured or uninsured, but now all of these workers that had employee-provided health insurance, that's 58%, who are losing their jobs. The estimate is that to be treated for the coronavirus, it's $30,000. So you're going to be slapping people who don't have work with these gigantic medical bills, or denying them medical care at all. Indeed, the teenager recently who died of corona was turned away from the hospital because he didn't have insurance. And so we haven't contained the virus. It's spreading exponentially because of a lack of testing. We don't know where it is, so we can't contain it. And we have a structure in the United States which guarantees that people will not receive adequate medical care, or they won't even go in to get tested. Remember, the 11 million undocumented workers in the United States don't have access to medical care, and they're not about to show up in an ER where ICE, the immigration, service can grab them and throw them in a detention center, which is a whole other issue because people are being warehoused, including children, in these detention centers where the virus will spread. We also have 2.3 million people in our system of mass incarceration. That's 25% of the world's population. Once the coronavirus gets in those prisons, it will, rage because of the close confinement. And of course, one of my worries is that corona's been identified in the Gaza Strip, which is one of the most densely populated and spots on Earth without not only just adequate medical care, but even adequate supplies of clean water. And I really think this all goes back to the destruction of the kinds of institutions that certainly were put in place in the New Deal in the United States, were put in place in old labor and then dismantled by Tony Blair and Margaret Thatcher, and later Tony Blair and quote unquote new labor, dismantled in the United States by Reagan, and then our version of Tony Blair, Bill Clinton, and Joe Biden, let's not forget, was an integral part of this. And so the system has been reconfigured to serve the interests of these global corporate oligarchic elites for a long time at the expense of the rest of us. And now, because of the stress caused by this pandemic, we're paying for it. I don't see how we're going to come back from it, certainly not like before. You have the capitalist class, and we've seen it with Trump, call for this ridiculous idea that you can return to work by Easter Sunday, because they would rather 1, 2, 3, 4% of the population, and of course the most vulnerable part of the population, die rather than see the economy go into a tailspin.